What is something humans probably won't ever be able to figure out? Story 1. As incomprehensible to us as airplanes are to ants. I like this phrase. An ant could be out in your yard when a jet flies over and not recognize the jet as a distinct part of the environment, much less identify as something artificial. I wonder if there are aspects and characteristics, or even objects in the universe that we are simply unable to comprehend in any meaningful way. There are questions we will never be able to answer, because we can never know to ask them. So, probably that. We'll probably never fully understand the universe. Story 2. How it feels to be others. I always find it fascinating how this person sitting in front of me is also thinking they see things from their side, and they have intentions to do stuff, etc. I don't know how to explain, like you can't suddenly just swap into others' body and know what their mind is doing. You can only imagine, but there's no way to actually experience others' mind and body. Edit. I see some have pointed out that this is something called sonder, but after reading a bit explanation on that term, I feel like it isn't really what I'm trying to say. While I do have this feeling as well about how other people on the streets also have their own lives, I'm talking about more of the senses and feelings we, different people, have while approaching the same thing, and that I have no idea how to experience the exact same thing, which seems so obvious for the person themselves. It's getting complicated. I should stop talking now, lol. Story 3. If you walk through any teleporter, are you still the same person? To teleport, every molecule must be torn asunder and transported to the new location. How are we to know if the person who entered the teleporter is the same who exits? My only guess to find out is possibly having someone go halfway through and then back out if it doesn't suck you through 100%. It could be that you die and a clone of you comes out the other end. Story 4. If God exists. Personally, I do believe it, but there's literally no way to prove he exists or doesn't exist until you die and maybe find out by yourself. But then there's no way to tell the actual living humans that he exists. Story 5. I feel like I stumbled upon a Wikipedia article regarding this topic once. List of unknown things or something along those lines. Like how we don't know how eels reproduce and shit like that. I'd like to find it again because I remember it being a fascinating read, just having a clue how to actually search for such a thing. Story 6. Why we're here. To me, though, that's the point of existence. We need unknowns to search for without ever reaching the answer. The key is to thrive in it. Yet people use religion, power, etc. to bastardize it. Story 7. Peace. It is my opinion that humans need adversity to advance. Either against nature, ourselves, or reality itself will always be fighting. Eventually, if man doesn't die out and successfully spreads to other planets, I'd expect us to try and fight against time itself. No matter what other societal challenges come our way, eventually the universe dies, and we as a species won't tolerate that lying down. Story 8. One thing humans may never fully figure out is the nature of consciousness and the mind-body relationship. Despite advancements in neuroscience and philosophy, understanding how subjective experiences arise from physical processes in the brain remains a profound mystery. The elusive nature of consciousness raises philosophical, scientific, and ethical questions that may continue to challenge us for generations to come. Story 9. One thing that humans might never fully figure out is the nature of consciousness. Despite centuries of philosophical pondering and scientific exploration, we're still scratching the surface of what it means to be conscious. The mystery lies in understanding how subjective experiences emerge from the physical processes of the brain. It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands, elusive and constantly slipping away. While we may make significant strides in unraveling the mechanisms behind consciousness, the enigma of its essence might forever elude our grasp. Story 10. Despite our advances in technology, I reckon we'll never quite crack the code on why we can land rovers on Mars, but can't seem to find a way to keep printer technology from feeling like it's stuck in the 1990s. It's as if there's an unspoken rule in the universe that says, "Thou shalt have all the knowledge of the cosmos, but when it cometh to printers, thou shalt forever struggle with paper jams and mysteriously disappearing ink." It's the ultimate humbling experience for mankind. Story 11. Isaac Arthur, over on the YouTube, excellent long videos about tech, future, space, engineering, often says something to the effect like surrounding a star with trillions of power collectors and bringing humanity to a Type 2 civilization is hard, but actually fairly doable. The Millennium Falcon is impossible, and it's counterintuitive because the idea of a Dyson swarm seems impossible or tens of thousands of years away. But the idea of a cool ship jumping from system to system across the galaxy is what people expect humanity will be doing in the next few generations. FTL is almost certainly off the table. Dyson swarms and other mega-engineering projects, taking apart stars, artificial black holes, Banks orbitals, could all happen in our lifetimes. Story 12. Time travel. At least not backwards in time. Time doesn't actually exist. The human perception of time is all just based on relative positions of celestial bodies. A day is the Earth spinning around once. A year is the Earth going around the sun. Etc., etc., etc. It's all just relative positions of atoms to other atoms. So in order to go backwards in time, you need to know where all the atoms in the observable universe were, and then put them all back, somehow. It also means there is a limit to how far back you can go, because the atoms that make up your body and your time machine are likely all accounted for elsewhere, unless you had a way to omit those atoms, which opens up a whole range of potential problems. Time doesn't exist. Story 13. That there is no benevolent benefactor waiting to save them from a hard life. There are elites, and then there are the rest of us, and it's not a game we are meant to win by any stretch of the imagination. There are no polarizing teams, just distractions to keep people on the hamster wheel mindlessly fighting each other and spitting out dollar until the air is unbreathable. We run out of resources. They leave the planet or the sun finally explodes. Story 14. We don't know what we don't know. Let that sink in. As we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know, but there are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know we don't know. Michael Donaldson. Story 15. Time travel. I think at best we're going to figure out conclusively that it's impossible. There's already a lot of math that makes it seem impossible, but most importantly, if time travel was possible, wouldn't we have seen it by now? Future time travelers coming to the past for a little exploration of history, or celestial bodies that make zero sense for the time scale of the universe. The other one that's unlikely is faster than light travel. I mean, literally going faster than light is impossible, especially because it would essentially also make you time travel. But I hope that one day we'll figure out wormhole travel. Story 16. The element we need for intergalactic travel is in our solar system, but we are nowhere near advanced enough to get it and bring it back to Earth the first time. After we have enough of the element from the first trip to where it is and back, we'll be able to create the same kind of crafts that aliens are already using and travel anywhere almost instantly. Story 17. The furthest level of the universe. Like before, we thought the Milky Way was the only galaxy around. Then it turned out there are trillions of them in the universe. Even if by some miracle we manage to find out that there's something outside of the universe, what are the chances that the multiverse theory is correct? What would be outside of that? I doubt we will ever truly know the cosmological limit of existence. Story 18. I'm guessing that Australian drivers will never understand how a roundabout works, that the right lane is a passing lane, that it's perfectly all right to maintain the speed limit, even around corners, oh my, and that it's useful and courteous to be aware of the people in front of and behind you. God forbid you move up a bit in the turning lane to allow others to get out of the traffic's way. Mirrors are made and mounted so you can look at them and evaluate your surroundings, which might inform your decisions, although I doubt it'll ever improve. Story 19. Does traveling against the flow of the universe reverse time? This could be a false memory, but I seem to remember reading about or hearing about an experiment that was carried out when supersonic flight was developed, where a pilot had synchronized his watch with someone on the ground and then flew around the planet opposite to its rotation, and when he landed, his watch was slower than the one he synchronized with. I think the only way to find out is with faster-than-light travel, and I doubt humanity can get there before we destroy ourselves. Story 20. How to coexist. Since the beginning of recorded history, humanity has always fought over our differences, may it be land, religion, or some other ridiculous power trip. The more we advance as a species, the more differences we seem to create. It's a sad reality, but I don't believe we will ever achieve peace as a species. Story 21. I am hoping for the best of a Star Trek-like future, but worry we will destroy ourselves first. We need to concentrate on ending wars. Making more and more advanced weapons to kill each other with is not the answer. That said, the ability to time travel is probably something we may not ever master, at least physically time travel. Sending messages through time may be possible, as the interaction between atoms at a distance is encouraging, if not completely understood. Albert Einstein dubbed the phenomenon spooky action at a distance, and proposed that the effect actually came about because the particles contained hidden variables, or instructions, which had already predetermined their states. Story 22, FTL. Every proposed solution requires exotic matter that might not even exist, and preposterous amounts of energy. Alcubierre drive would require the estimated mass of the entire observable universe be converted entirely to energy in basically seconds. Even if you could muster that kind of energy, WTF, are you building this thing out of that it can stand the waste heat that will inevitably generated? What material do you think can withstand that? Where TF are you going to test this thing? You better get it right on the first try. Ever watch videos of the Wright brothers? Story 23. How to go for a 24-hour period worldwide without someone committing murder. I mean, there's gun violence in the good old United States of idiots every day, probably more than once. It's the guns, and it always has been the guns. It is not a human right to own a weapon designed to kill people at an extremely fast and efficient rate. As George Carlin said in his last special, rights are an idea. They're just imaginary. They're a cute idea. Cute, but that's all. Cute and fictional. Cute and. Story 24. There's a result in computer science that shows that a computational model in essence cannot figure itself out. The most famous example is the halting problem, but it's true for DFAs and other models too. If you believe that our brains can be modeled similarly, which necessitates a materialistic worldview, for example, no soul, the same results would hold for our ability to understand how the brain works, in the sense we won't be able to predict how we'll react to certain conditions or stimuli. Combine that with the fact all our progress in AI is done despite A, not knowing how the brain works, and B, not being to approximate even the little we do understand. And you have my candidate for the answer. Story 25. Unfortunately, I think it is becoming obvious that humans as a group will not figure out 1, how to change from fossil-based fuels to sustainable ones, 2, how to live in relative harmony with each other and our environment, 3, how to stop being greedy and share resources including food, healthcare, and housing, 4, how to value biodiversity, 5, how to survive as a species through the human-escalated climate changes such as violent storms, as well as the wars and violence generated from there being less resources and less livable areas globally. But this is the world a handful of billionaires want, and they convinced a significant number of non-billionaires to want by lying and appealing to our most selfish, entitled, insecure qualities. Story 26. Probably what was before the Big Bang. Well, maybe an old universe dying and compressing into one small point and then again exploding. Okay, then what made the first universe? Why does anything exist then? I can't even comprehend how everything started from nothing. And even if you're a radical atheist, you must admit something is there. What? Why? We don't know. Well, even if nothing omnipotent exists, again, why does anything exist? Probably the existence of existence is the question humans won't be able to figure out. Story 27. How to travel faster than light. I leave hope that Einstein and everyone else said this because they tried to get people to not try to exceed it. As far as you can't go faster than light because of mass, I get that. But you're in a vacuum. What if there are other ways to travel except linearly? Someone will figure it out one day. But as long as you believe it can't be done, you'll never do it. I leave hope that someone will discover it by accident, and humanity will move to explore other planets. Probably, most likely, not in my lifetime, but maybe in a few hundred years. Story 28. Literally anything considered to be paranormal. Want to study it? Career suicide. Got photo evidence? How come you didn't get photo evidence when you have a cell camera? Oh, you got that evidence? Well, that's real convenient that you just so happened to take a photo at the time paranormal activity was happening. Well, is it security footage or a family photo? No, you just put that through AI art or Photoshop. Is that pic from before the 2000s? No, it's not. You're lying. Bye. Story 29. Sadly, long-term space travel and colonizing other planets, planetoids. Elon's colonization of Mars is pure fantasy. Mars would probably be more viable than the Moon, as it has some heat and atmosphere and present a lower risk in the event of a catastrophe. Simple truth is the resources needed are immense in terms of research and manpower. But the main problem is humans simply can't survive off Earth for any great lengths of time. Asides form muscle atrophy and bone marrow depletion after and significant time in space, 2 months. Space is full of background radiation, and any planet without stable magnetic poles wouldn't protect anyone from said radiation. We won't go to Mars. Astronauts will die before they can return to Earth. We've barely figured out safe, reusable launch vehicles. A vehicle that can launch from Earth or near orbit, land or send a lander, escape Mars gravity, retain a stable trajectory, and return to Earth. Working percentages ATM, very low. Astronaut survival for men 2 years space travel extremely risky. They, NASA, ESA, Roscosmos all know this. We aren't going to Mars, especially while we are spending so much on economies on the verge of collapse.